So who here remembers the time period where Nintendo fans hated The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker? This universally acclaimed game was extremely controversial at release because of its now beloved art style. People wanted Ocarina of Time again. And this new game is just too cartoony and different, gosh darn it.
Giving the fanboys what they wanted, what they needed, what they desired, Nintendo skipped all that cel-shading crap and delivered the goods on Twilight Princess.
Prowling Screw Attack back in the day, that game was basically a pariah for fanboys everywhere. It's honestly hilarious looking back, and it happened constantly too. Super Mario Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion suffered a similar fate.
Cleaning up the crap his brother threw down at the console's launch. So freaking lame.
Mario! Oh yeah.
I distinctly remember one list saying that the latter was one of the worst games on the system, all for not being a traditional Mario game. What's this, a water pump, a vacuum cleaner? This is different and I don't like that. Luckily, all of these games and more have been critically reevaluated as the classics they are. But what happens when your series isn't popular enough to get that reevaluation? What if the original gut reaction of different equals bad just kinda stuck, and that game never really got looked at again beyond that? Enter Star Fox, a series that to this day is mockingly considered to only have one good game. A series where Nintendo pretty much pretends that anything after the N64 one isn't even canon anymore. What happens then? Well, nothing. Star Fox Assault's story should sound very familiar. Any mention of it went like this. The first level was great, but then it's revealed that there are on-foot missions, and those are bad. Why can't the whole game just be like Star Fox 64? These days, it and its sister game, Star Fox Adventures, barely get talked about at all other than to be nonchalantly brushed aside. I played both of these games as a kid, and for the longest time I was conflicted, especially with Assault. I adored that game. This was my Star Fox team, Crystal and all. The gameplay was great, the story was surprisingly adult, and the multiplayer was the best of its kind from Nintendo. Or so I remembered. But I've loved terrible games as a kid before, and people seemed pretty sure that this game wasn't worth talking about, so I just kinda let it sit there in my mind, in a conflicted limbo. Until today, I'm getting out my Steam Deck GameCube and going back to see who was right, me as a toddler or the entire internet. This game was outsourced, as all Star Foxes seem to be, this time to Namco, before it merged with Bandai. It has their fingerprints all over it. The iconic flag power-up is hidden in all the levels, and you can even unlock the ability to play Xevious. So that's a +1 for all you Xevious heads out there. So you start the game up and it's like bam, pow! Here's a cutscene introducing all the characters and vehicles and showing some sick gameplay. Fitting for such an arcadey game to have an attract mode like this. Crystal has joined the team, joining the likes of Birdo and Shy Guy as characters who accidentally joined a completely random series because their own game got reskinned on a whim. Dinosaur Planet is a discussion for another day, but as much as it would have been great on its own, growing up with the GameCube, Crystal is a member of the Star Fox team to me, as much as Nintendo seems to regret that. Sep Sakurai, thanks for the assist, love you. Anyhow, talking about good first impressions, check out what happens when you pick a mode. Yeah, this game's music is iconic. You've probably heard some of the tracks before in Super Smash Bros., and they fit right in with all the high-quality music in that series. This game is completely orchestrated, even the sound effects. And this was all the way back in 2005? Even Mario didn't get that treatment till the Wii. Color me impressed. But that's enough preamble. This game has 5 general modes of play: classic Star Fox rail shooting action, obligatory early 2000s turret sections, and then the last 3 are kind of a combined deal: running around on foot, flying around in a 3D space, and of course, these latter 3 can be switched up on the fly in most levels, and I do mean on the fly completely literally. These 3 segments of gameplay are almost always intertwined, taking place in an open arena-like area where you need to switch between gameplay styles constantly to get through. These aren't the linear levels of Star Fox yore. As a matter of fact, these are literally the multiplayer stages, which serve dual functions for most of the game's actual single-player content. Is it economical? Yes. Is it cheap? Yeah, kinda. It works, so I don't particularly mind. I honestly can't tell which mode they were designed for first. So, like, it works. In these levels, you rack up combos by killing enemies at a steady pace. The higher the combo, the bigger the scores you can achieve. Weirdly enough, it kinda reminds me of Resident Evil's mercenary modes. Remembering stage layouts and objective locations to try and string together as many kills as possible. Usually the MO is this: you start the level, the game drops a bunch of objectives all over the map, and you gotta run around and destroy them all. Sometimes there's a catch, like needing to periodically clear the sky of enemies with your R-Wing, or doing a random turret section. But that's about the gist of it. Now, since most of the levels in this game are like this, it brings up an obvious question. Elephant in the room. Are the on-foot segments good? Well, if you use the first control scheme, no, not really. You see, the default control option is, completely tailored to beginners and near incompatible with actually playing the game well. You ever wanted to play a third-person shooter with one control stick? As a kid, it worked fine, but if you actually want to do well, pick the dual stick option. Could people's low opinions of the on-foot segments in this game be because this was the first control scheme? I don't know, maybe. I tried to use this for a while and it does not work well. Luckily for me though, the second control scheme works about like you would expect it to given its contemporaries. You can actually move and aim at the same time and use cover and like not die horribly. And when you get going with that control scheme, things click a lot more. The game is extremely generous with enemy hit detection, so pretty much anything in this giant reticle here will be hit by your shots. So the main focus isn't on sick no-scopes, but rather on run-and-gun combo building. You have a few weapons to work with here that you can find around the map, like, for example, the blaster, introduced in Smash Bros. And now actually usable in Star Fox proper. And hey, this time it actually does stuff. It's your default weapon and has infinite ammo, plus it can do charge shots. There's a machine gun, sniper rifle, rocket launcher, Gatling gun, grenades, and the completely useless in single player motion sensor bombs. Wow, that's a big variety. It'd be a shame if the only way to shuffle through them all is one at a time with a single input. Oops. Yeah, things are pretty hectic in this game, and no control scheme really fixes that specific issue. Makes me want to use up all my secondary guns just so I can sop through all the ones I need faster, and just avoid picking up motion sensor bombs altogether. But of course, the best weapon on land, one could even call it the master of the land, is this tank here. When you can, you'll always want to be in this thing. It packs a huge wallop. You can literally just boost into hordes of enemies and kill them all. Even flying enemies are no match for this thing's homing blasts. Which leads me, of course, to the air and the R-Wing. And yeah, it's about as glorious as it's always been. The on-rails segments of this game really do feel like the next-gen version of Star Fox 64. Everything is smooth as butter, from the controls to the spectacle-filled level design. Like, for example, Level 1. It starts in a huge space war. You're downing these massive starships left and right and being hit by everything the enemy has. but the enemy just barely escapes. You chase him into the atmosphere of a local planet, and it's a beautiful nature-filled area/military base. Eventually, you catch up to the previous games in the series' final boss's stupid nephew, and he turns his ship into said final boss. But this is just the first one. Anyways, you destroy that thing, and then the Borg comes in and kills him. And then you have to beat that thing, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of set pieces. This is the next evolution of Star Fox. One can almost understand the disappointment when you go from that to these repurposed or at least shared multiplayer levels with a totally different style of play immediately afterwards. It goes from pretty much perfect to flawed but still pretty good. This comparison is not helped by the fact that there are only 3 on-rail levels in this game. 1 at the start, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the end. Oh, and 1 open area R-Wing level. You know that one, it's the one Smash spent a year making a level based on, and then threw it away immediately afterwards. This lack of levels in general is really lame. I hadn't mentioned it before, but this game only has 10, compared to Star Fox 64, which had like 16. Considering that a majority of the levels feature reused content, that's kinda super lame. No branching paths at all either. I'd say back in the day when this was a $60 game, this would be a lot more of a problem though. Luigi's Mansion suffered similarly considering how short that game was. But nowadays, you're likely emulating this, or getting it for far cheaper than the original asking price. So I'd say it being short and sweet with a massive focus on replayability and multiplayer, it isn't a huge problem. These levels do usually have a lot packed into them, so it's really up to you to decide whether that's worth it or not. But hey, at least the game's story and presentation are far better than Star Fox 64. This game has a T rating and it really flexes it. It honestly feels like a cheesy sci-fi action movie. Reoccurring characters die here, sometimes horrifically. The game doesn't feel like it's talking down to you most of the time, other than Falco not swearing like a sailor, like we all know he does. The main villain is this robotic insect hive mind called the Aporoids that can possess and assimilate machines and organic life alike, and the stakes feel very high. Cities fall, sacrifices are made, the whole system could collapse. Even Starwolf has this honor among thieves thing going on. They may be scoundrels, but things are so bad that even they'll drop everything to help kill some Borgs. The voice acting really sells the characters too. It makes me like the crew even more. They feel alive and dynamic, though I really wish that carried over into gameplay. Yeah, like in the past, your teammates kinda suck. They only really do anything when they're being stupid and tailed by enemies. Then you have to save them, and then they give you a power-up, or nothing. The game does give you a medal if everyone makes it out alive, but I really would have appreciated it if they actually contributed to beating enemies or objectives more often. When on foot, I literally don't even think they bothered with the AI. God bless Slippy, God bless. It makes the entire team feel more like a burden than a team. As much as I love the characters, at least the other members get to shine in multiplayer. Yep. Multiplayer. I don't have anyone I can play this with anymore. And it's a huge part of the game, too. Let me just borrow some footage real quick. Credit in the description. Okay, here's what I can say. You can play as every member of Team Star Fox and can unlock Peppy and Wolf as playable characters. That is honestly so sick. As a matter of fact, this mode has tons of unlockables. New stages, completely broken weapons. You can even fly the Wolfen. There are also a ton of wacky modes to choose from, like snipers only or crown capture. The level designs are the same as the single-player missions, with a few bonus additions. I remember swapping between all the different gameplay styles in one match, and that was super cool. Going between Landmaster, On Foot, and R-Wing, depending on your opponent's strategy. As a matter of fact, as a kid, I loved this game's multiplayer so much that I thought, and I quote, Nintendo is making Star Fox into its answer to the Halo series, end quote. And yeah, I mean, both games are sci-fi with a heavy multiplayer focus. Even the guns, planes, and tanks are honestly pretty similar. So I honestly kinda get it, past me. Imagine the alternate timeline where this game took off as a multiplayer shooter juggernaut. I honestly could have seen Star Fox go in that direction. Oh well, Nintendo made Splatoon eventually to fill that niche, so that's a win-win, I suppose. Well, for everyone but Star Fox, who is very much still dead. If this game had found its audience, maybe things would have been different. At least Star Fox Zero wouldn't exist. All I'm saying is that if we finally get a GameCube game app on the Switch 3 or whatever, I will 1v1 all of you online. And that's my piece. This game is pretty good, actually. And I'd wager that the people who say 64 is the only good Star Fox game probably haven't actually played this one. Or adventure. It is very flawed, don't get me wrong. Star Fox 64 is objectively the better game here, design-wise. But this is just fun. As long as you don't pick hard mode, you can't change it after you pick it, and the game isn't designed for this level of difficulty. I played the entire campaign in the default control scheme. Please, no! Man, this game has a lot of caveats, huh? Don't use the default control scheme. Don't pick the wrong difficulty or you're stuck with it. There are less levels, especially of the type the series is known for. But man, under all of that is a good game, dang it. I can see why it would leave a bad first impression, but we are well beyond first impressions now. That kind of thing can't define a work forever. I think it's about time people gave this game its due. And if it eventually gets added to a contemporary system, I think people may see that this isn't the wreck they were led to believe it was. I mean, could a bad game have menu music this good?